welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. My next guest finished 2 summer seasons at the London Palladium in the title role of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolour Dreamcoat, and recently came off Old Friends in the West End. He is about to star in the title role of Pippin in the show's 50th anniversary concert at Theatre Royal Drury Lane. It's a huge delight to be able to introduce the wonderful Jac Yarrow. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I feel like Pippin is, one of those shows that have never really had like a lengthy run in London, but is still consistently, coming back. I was wondering, why do you think that this show is still so, consistently performed? That, what makes it stand out in the canon of musicals?
Well, it's because it's a story that so many people can connect to. Because when you think of Pippin, you think of circus and you think of fun and choreography and Bob Fosse and all of that stuff. But really, the show has lots of layers, and it's quite deep, very deep, and it touches on, the overall theme of the musical, I'd say, is sort of commenting on what people think a legacy is, or what their legacy should be, or as you grow up, you have all these hopes and desires of what you would like your life to turn out to be. And really, as you evolve as a human being, as you meet new people, as they influence your life, they change. Your goals and aspirations change, and therefore the mark that you leave on the world can be different. And in the case of Pippin, he has these dreams of being something bigger than he could ever imagine. He doesn't quite know what it is, but he knows that he wants to leave a huge mark on the world, when actually he realizes that the key to his happiness and the only thing that really he aspires to in life is to have a family and to be happy and content and live a stable sort of suburban quiet life. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, because as kids we all have these crazy dreams, and sometimes you change, sometimes you evolve, sometimes you don't want to pursue those dreams that you once wanted to pursue, and that's okay. So it's a comment on that, which I think is why people keep wanting to come back to Pippin, because it's an accessible story. But in actual fact, a fully fledged production of Pippin hasn't been in the West End since 1973, I think, or 2, when it was originally produced and choreographed by Bob Fosse. So there's been kind of smaller fringe productions, but never on a West End stage. So we're very excited to be bringing kind of this fully staged big production to a West End stage. I mean, it's only for 2 nights, so 29th and 30th you'll miss us. But yeah, it's cool to be the ones to sort of bring it back to the West End.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you say, I feel like Pippin's, search for happiness and search for fulfillment, it's definitely relatable. And I think especially, today, when we're constantly bombarded with ideals on social media, was there any part of Pippin that you were able to, identify within yourself too?
Oh, 100%. Actually, when it went out, when I saw that they were doing it, I saw it on social media. I thought, God, I'd love to play that role, because I feel like he's very close to me, or at least to a version of myself that I've been in the past, growing up and wanting to be a part of this business, musical theatre, show business. That was the thing that I kind of thought to myself, well, that's my big thing. That's my goal. That's what I aspire to. That's kind of the mark that I want to leave on the world. I want to be successful on stage in the West End. And that's exactly what Pippin has. He has dreams of becoming something that he sees as some kind of value. And then his values change, and my values have changed and continue to change. Like, I've been lucky enough to work in West End musicals, and I'd love to continue to do so. But your goals and aspirations and the way that you see life evolves and changes as you grow up. And that's 100% something that I'm experiencing and have experienced and will experience in the future. So yeah, I can totally relate to Pippin, 100%.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the character of Pippin, he goes on such an incredible journey, throughout the show. You really see him, go through the ups and downs of life. Is there a particular aspect to Pippin's character that you really hope to bring out in your portrayal of the character too?
Yeah, I love his playfulness, because he does kind of have that golden retriever playful energy just from the off. I love that. But it is that thing of, there's a point in Act 2 where he really experiences complete and utter turmoil, and he doesn't even want to get out of bed, because he feels like he had an opportunity to make a big mark on the world by taking over from his father being king, and it didn't go the way he planned. It didn't go very well. People didn't respond to him, and so he feels like that's it. He feels like his life is over. And it's fun to play that juxtaposition between this fun, playful, full of life character he is in Act One, and then the complete polar opposite in Act Two. But in actual fact, unlike many stories, he doesn't really get back on his feet. He realizes that where he is okay, and he's very content there. But the reason he's so depressed and feels so unsuccessful is because he's not achieved society's greater perspective on what success is. And so he realizes, well, I'm successful in my own right. I've fallen in love. I'm helping to raise a child. I've got a stable house. I live on a nice estate. That suddenly becomes enough for him. And I love that. I'm excited to get to play that sort of light bulb moment for him where he realizes that that is actually enough. That's all you want out of life, is contentment, happiness, and love, essentially.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're also, working alongside, a stunning ensemble of actors. You've got Alex Newell coming over, Patricia Hodge, who obviously starred in the original production back in 1972. Have you had a chance to, meet yet and to, discuss, the history of the show and, your vision for, what you hope the show will be as well?
Kind of. We start official rehearsals on Monday because we only have 2 weeks to put it on. So it's going to be fast and furious. So I've not met 90% of the company, but I worked briefly with Lucie for one afternoon, Lucie Jones, who's playing Catherine, Pippin's love interest. And aside from that, I had a week of rehearsals, just myself, Alex Newell, and Jonathan O'Boyle and Chris Marr, who are our director and musical director. So we just had a week sort of sat around doing exactly what you just said, learning the music and reading through the script, but also sort of unpicking it and figuring out what each scene means to us as actors and what we could bring to each scene. Also to kind of test the water, my relationship, or the relationship between Alex and myself. I've never worked with Alex before. Alex has never worked with me. We've never met. And obviously these characters are so entwined, Pippin and the leading player, they spend the whole show metaphorically dancing with each other. It's between the two of them. They are sort of the two pillars of the story. So it was important for me to meet Alex and work with them and see what they bring to the leading player and how I could bounce off of them, because Alex is a huge force and they've got a huge voice and they're very, very funny. And I'm excited for people to see the funny side of Alex and what Alex's leading player looks like. So I've had great fun working with Alex and trying to figure out what our onstage relationship is going to be. But yeah, no, we get into rehearsals on Monday. So I'm sure it'll be a crazy, crazy week, but I think it'll be great fun.
Yeah, it's definitely really exciting. And you're also getting to work with the London Musical Theatre Orchestra again. I came along to see Cinderella at Cadogan Hall 5 years ago. Yeah, and that was like really stunning stuff. Definitely one of the best like musical theatre concerts I've ever been to. Do you feel like doing these short 1-2 night events? Do you feel like the demands are different to doing a full run of something too?
I don't know if it demands something else of us. I think it's just, everyone that's there wants it to be the best that it could possibly be. But the only difference between those concerts and, say, a fully fledged musical is that a fully fledged musical is going to run for a significant period of time. Whereas these concerts, as you say, they're just a one-dayer, or we're lucky it's a two-dayer, 29th and 30th. And that rarely happens. Normally it's sort of a Sunday, you do an afternoon show, an evening show, and then you're done. So it's kind of the only difference is it's kind of fast and furious trying to put it on, and then you kind of have to make your peace with what will be, and you've put in all the work. You have to trust the work you've put in and the rehearsals you've done. Do the concerts to the best of your ability, and then it's done. Then it's over.
Yeah.
So it's the epitome of theatre, really, because theatre's one of those real things. It's there and then it's not. So it's fun to be part of something that people can see and then they can't. If you've missed it, you've missed it. It's sort of magical in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we're seeing more of these, musical theatre concerts, popping up. We had Your Lie in April just the other week, Pippin's coming up. I came along to see At Last It's Summer as well last year at the Palladium. Yeah, why do you feel like these concerts are now becoming more and more trendy as well?
I think for loads of reasons. I mean, it's a great opportunity for people to see actors or an assembly of actors and actresses who they wouldn't necessarily see in any other production. It's rare. Normally for these concerts, you get a really, really great bunch of performers, and these performers are often very busy and very packed schedules. So if they're in one show and someone else is in another show, you won't get the opportunity to see them all together. So to be kind of cast in Pippin, for example, and put together with this assembly of actors is one thing that's really cool. But I think that's what's exciting about these concerts, because you see, I don't know, like a Legally Blonde in concert, and then all of a sudden they announce the cast, and it's this amazing lineup of people who can all do it because it's for one night only. So everybody's free, everybody's available, and you get a group of actors, group of performers who you wouldn't necessarily get to see. So that's really fun. But also, I think a lot of these concerts are either musicals that haven't really had a life in London, or have had a life but it was a bit too short, or if they have had a life, it was years ago. So it's cool that producers really want to breathe new life into these works, and hopefully introduce these musicals to a whole other group of people who may not know them, or if they do know them, they only vaguely know them. It's cool to sort of bring a new musical or a new version of a musical to a different audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the case of At Last It's Summer last year, it was a totally brand new musical which like no one had, heard before. What was it like, getting to present, the premiere of this brand new work, with this large orchestra in the Palladium?
Oh, I mean, first, the reason I wanted to do it more than anything else was to be back at the Palladium, because it's just a magical theatre. It's a magical building. You can't quite explain the vibes or the atmosphere at the Palladium. It's just completely unique. So being back there is always the most exciting thing. And then the orchestra, yeah, we were so lucky to have that orchestra, an amazing orchestra. And then we had this extraordinary cast of people like Louise Dearman and
Joanna
Joanna Ryding,
Ryding.
Joanna Ryding, and and Cedric Neal, and it was kind of like we were all just there and just having a complete stab in the dark, because, as you say, it was a completely new musical. So we didn't know how it was going to go, how it was going to be perceived. We were trying to make sense of the musical ourselves. And it was a really unique experience. And I learned a lot from that experience about how to approach new material, how to approach new work. And looking at people like Louise Dearman or Joanna Ryding, to be able to watch them see a piece of paper with their characters' lines and somehow find a way to create a take on it and to take it off the page and to really breathe life into a character was super, super educational. So that was a massive takeaway for me from At Last It's Summer.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally, as you say, watching like all of my favorite performers, in the London Palladium, seeing people like Joanna Ryding and Rob Houchen, with Larry Blank, conducting this orchestra as well. It was pretty, yeah, it was.
Larry Blank was just a privilege in itself, to work with Larry Blank, who conducted that performance. He's a legend, and his musical theatre CV, or just his CV in general, is absolutely insane. So to be able to share a stage with him and to learn from him and the way that he likes to work was an experience that I should have paid them for that experience, and they were paying me. But Larry is amazing. He's really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you also, recently got to work with Christina Lardo again, following Cinderella, and also with Joanna Ryding as well, out on Sondheim's Old Friends. How was it, getting to work together, with, this whole bunch of people, who are, West End veterans, but also, more emerging performers as well, on this celebration of Sondheim?
Yeah. Oh my God, it was amazing. It was like, it's hard to put into words, because I knew it was going to be special, but it was special as a performer, but as a human being, like, it was just a very healing experience. Like, I felt like it was good for my soul to be around these people, because I was lucky enough to work with, some of the people you've mentioned, and then people like Janie D and Bernadette Peters and Leia Salonga and Jeremy Seacombe and all of these, Claire Burt, all these phenomenal, Bonnie Langford, these amazing people that have had such vast, rich careers in this industry. To be able to share the stage with them, rehearse with them, get to know them as human beings, it was life-changing, because I could just, it's very easy, I think, as a young person in this profession, and as a young person who's been very fortunate and I've had some really amazing experiences, it's very easy to sort of get on the treadmill of what's next, and have to be front and center, and have to do this and have to do that, and I want to achieve this and achieve that. But all of these people had achieved all of this amazing success in their careers, but they were just working actors, and they were happy to be working, happy to be in a job, happy to be a part of Stephen Sondheim's old friends, which, you know, a review of Stephen Sondheim, directed by Matthew Bourne and Julia Mackenzie, choreographed by Stephen Mear, put together by Cameron McIntosh. It just doesn't happen. Like, when will that ever happen again? Well, it's happening again on Broadway, but a new production of it, it's not going to happen. And with that assembly of people, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd get to stand in the wings and watch Bernadette Peters sing Send in the Clowns and losing my mind. And I was lucky enough to be able to, and I made the most of it. It was only 6 months that we ran, but every single performance I'd stand in the wings and I'd watch her sing those numbers, because with an opportunity like that, it would be stupid to not relish every single second, because it's one of those things that's never, ever going to happen again. So I feel extremely lucky to have been part of it, and that Julia and Matt and Cameron, took a chance on me and invited, because I'd never done any Sondheim. I didn't have Sondheim experience. I've loved him, and I've been a massive Sondheim fan my whole life, but I'd never done any professional Sondheim. So Julia Mackenzie came into our dressing room on the opening night, and she said, now that you've done Sondheim, he'll always be with you. He's always, you've always got him to refer back to. And it's so true, because I feel like now that I've done his music, or performed at least a fraction of his music on stage, I can always fall back on that. It was like having a second training. So, I mean, I could talk about it all day long, but it was the most life-changing experience being in Old Friends. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all at the same time as well, we sometimes hear that, Sondheim isn't as commercially viable as, other pieces of work in the canon. So it was really special just to see, a big celebration of his work in a West End theatre. Do you think we'll see more Sondheim, going forwards in London too?
I hope so. I really hope so, because I was amazed. Like, when we did an open dress rehearsal the day before our first preview, and Cameron McIntosh invited the front of house team and a couple of, friends of friends and that sort of thing to come and watch this open dress. And a lot of them didn't even know who Sondheim was. And I was blown away by that. But then, if you're not a musical theatre performer, he's unfortunately not a household name, which is wild to me. I mean, if you say West Side Story or Gypsy, a lot of people will know of those musicals, but they don't know Stephen Sondheim's name. And that's just kind of, to me, that's like people not knowing Shakespeare's name. I can't compute it in my mind, because he's been so influential on all of us as performers and as musical theatre lovers, or just theatre lovers. It's crazy to me. So I really, really hope that there will be more Sondheim on stage. Because, as you say, his shows when they were first produced were not super commercially viable, and I think it's because they were so ahead of their time and touched on subjects that musicals on Broadway had never ever gone near or would go near with a 10-foot pole, because they were too personal and too emotionally triggering for people. I think we've got an appetite for that now. As humans, we've evolved to want to go to theatre to feel something deeper than to sort of, watch a tap dance or go and listen to some nice music. It's always nice to watch that, but we need, for us to have a shared human experience, we need depth now. We need things with meaning, with weights that are going to really affect us, to have a fulfilling theatrical experience, I think. And his musicals just do that in a way that nobody else's does.
Yeah, I definitely hope so as well. Do you have your eye on any particular Sondheim shows or roles that you particularly want to tackle going forwards?
I'm desperate to be Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd. And I will die on that hill. I've said that so many times. I don't know. I mean, I've obviously, the cliche would be to say I'd love to be Tony in West Side Story, but I really would. And I was lucky enough to do the quintet from West Side Story in Old Friends. So that was really great. What else is there? I mean, God, so many things. I would do, to be honest, the honest answer is I would do any of his shows in a heartbeat, literally any of them. So there's not a particular role. I would relish the opportunity to sing any of his music, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, Jack in Into the Woods.
I did Jack in Into the Woods when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
My second, amateur. I did like an amateur production of it, and I played Jack and I sang Giants in the Sky. And I think it was the first time I ever sang on stage. So I've done that one already, so I can't do that one again.
Oh, wow.
But maybe. maybe that'd be fun. I mean, there was that great production of Into the Woods on Broadway, wasn't there? That I really would love to see that come over. Because that's a brilliant, brilliant musical, one of his best, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking back over your career as well, you've pretty much been in this industry for about 5 years now as well, since your debut in Joseph. How would you describe the last 5 years? And, do you feel like you're now also, assuming a role of, an elder in the company and having people, come to you for advice, on carving out a career in this industry too?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was weird because doing Old Friends, we had very senior members of the company like Bernadette, in her 70s. She's had her entire career and is still having a phenomenal career. And then we had people sort of middle of the road, sort of 40s, 50s. And then we had people sort of around my age, mid 20s, 30s. And then we had some graduates. It was their first job.
Mm.
And it was interesting because I would never assume that people would come to me and ask me things, because in my head I still feel like I graduated yesterday. I still feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing either, like we're all kind of just blagging it. But yeah, no, to have people sort of ask me questions, and I find the best thing to do is sort of to encourage them, or the people that have said to me, oh, I'm really nervous about this, or I'm nervous about auditioning for this, or people who's it's their first auditions or first roles. I'll always just encourage them as human beings rather than as the performers. I don't think it's, at least for me, it wasn't necessarily helpful for people to try and give me advice about what to do on stage. It was more of how to cope with it off stage. And I think to try and hammer home to graduates as much as possible that, yes, it is an amazing career and it is a lifestyle, because it definitely takes up a lot more of your life than most careers. I think it's important to remember who you are, what you value in life, and what your hobbies and passions are outside of performing in theatre. Because I think once you're grounded in that, theatre then becomes a lovely bonus.
Mm.
You're lucky you work for, most of the year, but not all of the year. Or in my case, I'm very fortunate because I've got to do lots of lovely projects and exciting shows, but they've been for short runs, which is great because I love new challenges and I love sort of doing something for a time and then, okay, that's gone. Okay, what's next? That's perfect for me. But in those gaps, in between, it's important to have other things that fulfill you. And I think once you're grounded in what they are, once you know who you are as a person in that respect, it makes it so much easier to go into a first day of rehearsal or into a performance, because you go, well, the pressure's off. Because if I'm bringing my authentic self to this rehearsal or to this performance, that's all I can do. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's fine because I've got all of this other stuff. And then I'll try something else, and then I'll try something else. I think there's just all this pressure to be perfect all the time. And it's not an authentic way to live your life. It's just, and it's boring. It's boring to watch and it's boring to live, because you want to experience the highs and lows of being an actor in the most authentic way possible, I think. So that's the advice that I try to give to younger people or graduates that sort of ask me what it's like, what's it like being in the West End, or then that's my main piece of advice.
Yeah, I was really curious to hear about your transition, going into Joseph, halfway through your college, last year at Arts Ed. Did you feel like it was, a big jump, going from, performing, for in Arts Ed, to performing in the West End? Because I only recently started going to college shows myself, and I feel like, a lot of them are really, really good. So, having already been, performing to paying audiences, did it feel like a big jump?
It didn't even feel like a jump. It kind of just felt like, it literally felt like I blinked and everything was just happening. And it felt like it was happening to me and I was watching it. I was sort of having an out of body experience. And I left college and I started rehearsals for Joseph. And it was literally like I got the call that I was going to play the role. And then you're going to do the one show. Then you're going to do Britain's Got Talent. Then you're going to do Loose Women. Then you're going to do This Morning. And all these crazy things were happening. And I just had to kind of surrender to it and just completely be, ride the wave, completely ride the wave. And it wasn't until COVID stopped us and we had time to think. And I then went back to Joseph the following year, but COVID stopped us. And it was then that I sort of had time to reflect on it and go, I can't believe that just happened. Like, that was a complete whirlwind, which is the most cliche thing to say. But it was a whirlwind, and in the moment, you can't, or at least I couldn't appreciate the jump, as you say, the jump between college and performing in the West End, because I just had to be there. I didn't have time to sort of go, okay, here we go, jump. It just sort of happened. It was like I was shot out of a cannon. And so I was grateful for the perspective I gained during the pandemic, not grateful for the pandemic, but grateful for the perspective it gave me, because I then came back to it with fresh eyes going, okay, I see this for what it is now. I can appreciate it. I can make a bit more, make some more logical decisions, or embrace sort of what it's like to be a working actor in this musical. And it's a hard musical to navigate because it has a lot of fans and a lot of hype, and people get really excited around Joseph because it's got such history in this country. So it was interesting for me to sort of navigate what that means to other people and what that means to me as a performer, how it's going to inform my performance on stage. So it was a crazy whirlwind. I really didn't appreciate the jump, but now looking back, I'm like, I can't believe that happened. That was bonkers.
Yeah, it definitely sounds incredible. I mean, Joseph, as you say, was such a massive success, both times it was on at the Palladium. And you obviously, garnered, a huge fan following. I've seen, so many different, fan pages, following Jac Yarrow on Instagram. How did that, fame ever, factor into your decision into wanting to become an actor? And how has it been, seeing, so many people, come up to you at stage door and everything?
Oh my God, fame absolutely never played a part in me wanting to be an actor. It wasn't like, oh, I want to be a West End actor because they're famous and they make lots of money, like a film star. It was never that. I fell in love with musicals, and rather than being in the audience, I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be in it. So it was as simple as that. So the fans and the sort of all the extracurricular stuff that comes with it was something I wasn't prepared for. And I actually think that there should be something at college to teach people about how to navigate it, because it's weird. Like it's wonderful and it's amazing. And I always say there's no other profession, maybe, a sports person or a TV personality or something, but there's no other job where you leave your work every day and there's people waiting to tell you what you mean to them, or what the show means to them, or how you've made their day or their month or their life better. It's amazing. Like, we're so privileged to be in the position we're in, to be able to touch people in that way and also get paid for it and do something that we love. It's like a win-win-win. It really is amazing. But I mean, I've got some lovely, lovely fans. Makes me cringe. I don't like saying fans, but I feel like supporters or almost friends. You see these people that keep coming back to stage door time and time again, keep coming back to the shows that I've been lucky enough to be in. And it's just, how excited they get about a new show that I'm in, or to see the show that I'm in and get excited about it. And it's really, really amazing to have a group of supporters, and especially from Joseph, because the people love Joseph and the fans of Joseph are diehard. And it's cool to now be part of that legacy. I feel very, very fortunate.
I didn't realize how long you'd actually stayed with Joseph. You obviously did the Palladium shows, but then you also went on tour with it as well. So you really stuck at it for about 2-3 years actually. When you finished doing your first one in 2019, did you feel like you were done with this part, or was there always more that you wanted to explore with Joseph and with this character too?
Yeah. Well, when I finished in 2019, I knew that I'd be coming back the following year to do the other slot. They sort of had a 3-month slot in the summer that we did in 2019, and they were going to do it again in 2020. But obviously COVID came along and shut everything down. So we then didn't get to do that summer slot until 2021. So I was doing other things sort of in between 2019. During the pandemic, I was doing some TV work, and I was filming a series out in Spain and doing Cinderella at Cadogan Hall, all these other things. Panto at the Palladium, that all happened in the pandemic. And then I came back to it. And so by the time I came back to it in 2021, it felt like, oh, okay, this is nice. And now I feel like I found my feet as a performer and as a human. I feel like I can do this in a different way. But then 3 months goes like that, and the run was over. And I was kind of disappointed, and I wanted more. And I didn't feel like I'd done enough. I felt like it was too short. So then when the UK tour was offered to me by Michael Harrison, who produced it, I just absolutely jumped at it, because I thought the fans of Joseph are so loyal. They've traveled to London to see us. We should travel the UK and see them. Do you know what I mean? Like to almost pay it forward, pay it back. And I wasn't done with the role. The role is so fun, and the show is so uplifting, and to work with all those kids who put a smile on my face every day. The creative team I really, really loved, and still love. And they were all, going to come back together to put this UK tour together. And I thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to feel left out and I'm going to feel like it's unfinished business. So I really wanted to do it. So I did the UK tour and had the most amazing time. And then we finished up with 3 months in Toronto, which was just a bonus, 3 months at the end of it, which sort of tipped us over into 2023. So by that time, I guess you could say I'd sort of done the show for a year and 3 months. That's sort of how long I did it for. And then we finished in Toronto in February of last year. I think it was February last year. Yeah, February last year. So yeah, it was a long journey. If COVID hadn't have happened, who knows, maybe it would have been a shorter journey, but I'm glad it was, or I'm glad I was with the show for as long as I was, because I really feel like I got so much out of it. And I'll always be very grateful to Michael Harrison, who produced it, who literally took a chance on me out of nowhere, because I was just a random, arts ed student, and he just took a chance. And I'll be forever grateful to him and to that experience, because it was life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to ask you a little bit about arts ed as well. Obviously, the school has, had some rather unflattering headlines in recent months. I was wondering, were you surprised by, what you've been reading, online, or has it been, fairly unsurprising?
I want to be super careful about what I say. I can only speak from my own experience at arts ed, and I can't speak for anyone else's. I knew that it was a very cutthroat, brutal, sort of unique environment going into it. So I kind of expected a lot of it. And I had an amazing time. And I did learn everything that I know now from arts ed. I had some amazing tutors. I can't speak for anyone else's experience. I know that other people had experiences that were very different to mine, but I'll always be grateful to arts ed for the training that they gave me and for what I still utilize in my life and on stage now from arts ed. But if people have certain issues, or if people experience certain things there that they feel are unjust or unfair or completely immoral, then that's completely their prerogative to call it out, and rightly so, because I think whilst drama school should be, there should be a level of honesty and a level of this is what we think this should be in order to get the best out of you. That's fair enough, but it's not a fine line between what's appropriate and what's not. So as long as everybody does what's appropriate and what's okay, then that's fine. And I know that people experience things when they were there and I was there that weren't okay. And I think it's absolutely right that they call it out, because it does have to change. And I think it has, or I think it's on the way there. But yeah, it's one of those unique things. I can't speak for other people's experience. I had a great time. I learned a lot. I'm sure there were things that happened there when I was there that now I look back and I go, I probably wouldn't have, my older self probably wouldn't have tolerated X, Y, and Z. But you live and you learn, and the school has changed and things are changing, and it's still churning out amazing performers. So hopefully people's mental health or health is prioritized above everything else.
Okay, very, very diplomatic, very well said. Just as a just as a last question, yeah, coming back to the themes in Pippin, on legacy and what people leave behind, what do you hope to be remembered for?
Oh God, a good friend, loyal to my friends and to my family. I don't know, just a hard worker. I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's definitely not. I've definitely not got that thing where I'm like, I want to win 7 Oscars and I want to be the richest actor in the world. And that's not. If that happens, I'd be thrilled. But that's not. That's not the legacy I want to leave. I'm more concerned about, how I'm perceived as a human being rather than an actor. But I'd love to be an actor that somebody could look up to, or someone can, research on YouTube one day and go, oh, I want to do that, or I want to be like that one day. That would be great. But legacy wise, I think it's just, just trying to be remembered as doing my best.
Jac Yarrow, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. This is really fun.